Now, most of us would say that we want a highly effective pastoral staff. It's what would make our jobs easier. It's what would make our churches more effective. It's what would reach more people, advance the kingdom, reach our communities, all of that. We would all raise our hands and say yes. But what if I could tell you how long it would take to develop your team into a highly effective staff? Wouldn't that make it easier? Because one of the biggest challenges, or one of the biggest reasons we don't train our pastoral staff members, is simply because of the time that it takes. We're busy. Ministry is busy, ministry is challenging, and we're always going. And so we have this feeling like if I take time to train my pastoral staff, well, then I'm losing time on doing things that are really important, real ministry, real making a difference in people's lives, real evangelism and relational connection. We feel like we are sacrificing real ministry for training our pastoral staff members because we just don't know how long it's going to take and we don't want to waste that time. Well, what I want to talk about today is how you can know exactly how long it's going to take to train your pastoral staff to become highly effective. So let's get started. So the big question is this: how do pastors like us who remain focused on the mission of Jesus and serving our communities without being distracted by everything in the world around us, how do we increase our effectiveness while living a lifestyle that doesn't compromise our health, our families, or our personal relationships with Jesus? That's the question this podcast is going to answer. I'm Dr. Brandon Party Cooper, and welcome to the Ministry Hackers Podcast. Welcome, everyone, to this episode of the Ministry Hackers Podcast. I hope you're doing wonderful. Hope things are going well wherever you are. Hope you're having a wonderful day as you're listening here on the Ministry Hackers Podcast. If this is your first time here, you've somehow stumbled across us, you've heard about it, maybe somebody referred you to us, whatever. If this is your first time, I want to introduce myself. My name is Dr. Brandon Party Cooper. I'm the founder here at Ministry Hackers. Excuse me. And our goal here, our number one goal, is to help you as pastors and ministry leaders discover your dream life in ministry. Help you live the life of pastoring a growing church and spending time with your family, reaching your community and having a hobby, making a difference in the people that are right near you in your community and in your church, while at the same time going on vacations and seeing the world and doing all the things that you dream about doing outside of ministry. God has created a dream life for you, and we believe that we can help you find that. And so that's what our goal is. That's what we do here, is we help you discover what your dream life in ministry is. And so if you're interested in trying to discover that dream life or help or allow me to partner with you and help you discover what that dream life in ministry looks like, I would love to do that. And so if you go to ministryhackers.com/mydreamlife, sign up there and we will walk step by step. There's 5 steps to get you to live that dream life in ministry. I'll walk you straight through them, take away all the guesswork, and help you discover what your dream life in ministry looks like. Again, go to ministryhackers.com/mydreamlife and let's get started so you can start living your dream life today. So I have to apologize for the last episode, because if you tuned in the last episode, I had mean face on. I'm not really sure why, not sure really what was going on yesterday, but I went back and I watched it and I'm like, wow, I really have mean face today. I'm not really sure what the deal was. Maybe I'm tired or worn out. For most of you know, we are in the process of transitioning, my family and I, and so it's been a lot of ups and downs, lots of things going on, lots of questions that, we're waiting for God to answer. And so maybe that's why I had mean face. Maybe I just wasn't aware enough of my face to take my mean face left. Honestly, that's probably my normal face. So for those who are watching and you see my mean face on the last episode, that's my normal face, which is why my kids are scared of me. So so I apologize for that. So today I'm working very hard to make sure that mean face doesn't come out and come through the video for you, for those who are watching. So if you are listening to the podcast and you have not watched the podcast, or maybe you didn't even know that it was available, you can check out our YouTube channel, Ministry Hackers YouTube channel. You can go there and you can discover our other videos and podcasts and everything else that's housed on there. So again, just go to YouTube, search Ministry Hackers, and you'll find us. But yeah, so if you do go and you watch last episode, I do apologize for mean face. Excuse me. So In the last episode, we started talking about training your pastoral ministry team and the value of it, why it's important, why you need to train your ministry team, your pastoral ministry team, to give them higher quality, mainly for two reasons. Number one, so that it helps you live your dream life in ministry. And then the second reason is because you don't know where your team is coming from, what their origin story is, what the level of training they had. And when you bring them on, you train them well, and you create this foundation that you as a team can build off of. You train them on how you would like things done. You train them on how to be effective and efficient in your church and in your ministry model and what you're doing as a lead pastor. And so that's what we talked about yesterday. 2 reasons why you needed to train your pastoral ministry team. Now, the biggest kickback I get all the time is, well, I just don't have time for that. I don't have time to train my team because of all these other things, all these other ministry things, the real ministry that I'm called to do. That's what I'm doing, and I don't have time to train. And so I thought maybe today would be helpful to give you a couple steps or a couple one of the main things you can do to help you understand how long you're looking at, what the learning curve is going to be, how long it's going to take to figure out how long it's going to take to train your pastors on your ministry team so that they can be effective and not drain your time and theirs, honestly, because there aren't too many pastors, staff pastors out there saying, hey, I just want to spend lots of time with the lead pastor and I want to learn everything I can from him, and I really would like to not do ministry at all. I just want to learn. There aren't too many staff pastors out there doing that, but there are a lot of staff pastors out there saying, hey, I do want some training. I do want to grow. There's lots I don't know, and I want somebody to teach them. And the sad part of it is there are a lot of lead pastors out there, and I hope this isn't you, but there are a lot of lead pastors out there who say, that's not my job. That's not what I'm here to do. You went to Bible college. You went to ministry training school. Your job is to be trained. My job is to tell you what to do here at the church and in our ministry. And so there are a lot of pastors out there who kind of abdicate training their pastoral staff to some other institution or some other person, which, to some extent is okay. Even for me, like I have been trained in ministry in lots of different areas. I went to Bible college. I have a couple of higher ed degrees. I've had great mentors along the way. Some were really great lead pastors. I had a couple of youth pastors who were incredible, who taught me a ton. My youth pastor growing up. So I've had lots of different ways of learning. But when I come on staff at a church, if I were to come on as an executive or another staff pastor, I would want to know how my lead pastor wants things done. And if his attitude or perspective was, that's not really my thing, like you just need to figure it out, I'll figure it out, that's fine. But what that also communicates to me is that lead pastor is really not interested in me. He's just interested in what I can do for him and for his church. And that just kind of sets a negative tone in that relationship moving forward. And so if you're a lead pastor, then I would say shift your mindset. If your attitude is, I don't want to train my pastoral staff members, that's not my job, I'm going to challenge you to revisit that conversation. Because I think one of the greatest things you can do is to multiply yourself into other pastoral staff leaders. And if you're struggling with your staff is off base, your pastoral staff is not performing the way you want them to, they're not doing an efficient job or an effective job as pastors, the easy way out is to let them go and bring on someone else, which, maybe that's the case. Maybe that's what's best for everybody. But too often I think we let go instead of providing training. We bring in new staff members and we repeat that same cycle. And then in 2, 3, 5 years, they move on to somewhere else and bring in someone else. And there's always this underlying frustration as lead pastor that we're not getting what we want out of our staff pastors. And I've heard lots of pastors say, you know what, there just really aren't any good pastors out there. I really can't find a good youth pastor. I can't really find a good kids pastor. I can't really find an executive pastor or an associate pastor that I can trust. Maybe that's the case, but if you're finding that over and over and over again, there's a chance that, maybe some of the issues with you as you're bringing on staff developing them or not developing them, and then kicking them out when you're frustrated with them. So if that's you, I'm going to challenge you in love and grace and mercy. I'm going to challenge you to revisit the conversation, because as a staff pastor, I would love to have a lead pastor take the time to invest in me. Not a ton of time, not all his time, but some. Because if I'm choosing to follow a lead pastor, then I'm looking to learn from them. I'm looking to glean what they have. I'm looking to tap into the years of experience that they bring to the table. Otherwise, I'd just go be a lead pastor myself. So that's my challenge for you. But okay, so the question is, yes, I want to train my pastoral staff, but I don't want it to take all my time. So how do I figure this out? So the first thing you need to do when creating a highly effective pastoral staff team, the first thing you need to do is you need to identify the gaps for each member of your team. So think of it like this. You need to build a bridge. You're trying to get somewhere and you have a bridge that needs to be built. Now, the bridge is partially built. Some pieces are up, some of the bridges run. You're not walking into a blank screen or a blank canvas. You have part of a bridge. So what you need to do is you need to figure out, okay, what is built and what isn't. What parts do I need to add to it? What are the vital things? Are the trusses right? Is the foundation, the base set? What of the bridge exists and is in place the way it needs to be, and what do I now need to build in order to make it a safe bridge so we can cross from one side to the other? And that's kind of what we're doing with our pastoral staff members. When we are training them and developing them, we need to identify the gaps, and we identify the gaps by figuring out what do they already know? What are they already proficient in? And then what do we need to figure out? Because the thing is, if you're going to create a training process for your pastoral staff, there is a degree that it needs to be a foundational process that every pastoral staff member goes through in order to be on your team. Yes. But at the same time, there are certain skills and pieces of that training experience that not everybody needs to go to. So let's say you bring on a staff pastor and you're wanting them to share the load of preaching on a Sunday morning. Well, if they're coming in with years of experience and you've heard them speak, they're prolific speakers, they're charismatic, they develop their content very well, they're just good preachers already, well then I don't need to spend a lot of time developing this pastoral staff member's preaching ability. I may need to teach them exactly how I want things done, or some of the nuances that we have here at our faith community. You may need to teach them those things. But you don't need to go deep into how preaching should be done, how they need to develop a sermon, how they need to deliver a sermon. You don't need to go into all that, because they're already seasoned veterans behind the pulpit, and they already know what they're doing. And so you might give them some nuances for you and your faith community, but you kind of skip that part. That part's already developed. But maybe you need to move because, maybe this pastoral staff member, maybe they're great at preaching, but they've only been in churches of 400 and 500, and your church is 1,100. Well, you need to teach them how to interact with a larger community like that. You need to teach them boundaries. You need to teach them, where they need to focus their time and energy, how to maximize, the time that they have, what areas of ministry they need to really pay attention to and focus on. They need to understand how to do it in that context of 1,100 as opposed to 400 or 500 that they came from. And so you would spend more time developing that portion of the bridge, and you would probably skip over the sermon development portion of the bridge because it's already built. And so that's what identifying the gaps is. Identifying what is already proficient and what is not. And there's a couple main reasons you're going to want to do this. The first one, and this is the main one, is it manages your expectations on time and performance. And what I mean by that is when you step into this, you hire on a pastoral staff member and you have this training experience that they go through. Okay, so they're proficient in this, this, and this, and this. But they need to develop in this, this, and this, and this. And so in order to go through this portion of the training experience, it's going to take this amount of time, approximately, on average. It takes this much time to go through these portions. And so you've now managed your expectations on time. You can also manage your expectations on performance, because when you know, okay, here's what the training experience looks like, and here are the pieces they're going to do, then that means I'm not going to ask them to preach next month, because maybe they're not ready. They haven't gone through that portion. Maybe they haven't developed their preaching yet. And so not only are you managing your expectations on how long it's going to take to get them to be proficient, but you're also managing your expectations on how long, or not how long, but what level of performance you can expect. So let's say you bring on a pastoral staff member and they're okay preachers. They have some experience. Maybe they've been preaching to youth for the last 10 years, and now they're stepping into an executive position under you, and now they're preaching to adults on a regular basis. And they need to develop that a little bit, when they need to change their style to more of an adult style than a youth style. So then what maybe you do, instead of throwing them out there the first month that they're there, maybe you bring them in and do a tag team preaching with them a couple months in. And so you can develop the sermon together. You kind of bounce back and forth. They can speak alongside you as you kind of show them your style and how you approach it. And so then they can glean from you how you do it. So then as they develop and get used to preaching to adults, they're preaching to adults in a way that is theirs, but in a way that you expect them to. And it's not you telling them, do this, do this, do this, and do this, because they're doing it alongside you and they're learning as they go. But then you understand you have an expectation of performance, that you know that if I bring them in a tag team, then we can talk about the development, and then maybe they can go solo, or maybe we do another tag team down the road, whatever the case is. But it manages your expectations on time as well as on performance. And so then when you get frustrated that they aren't as good as you would like them to be, you can look at the timeline, you can look at the training experience they're going through, and you say, okay, well, they're not there yet because they haven't reached that part of the training experience. They're not deep enough into it. They haven't applied it enough times, whatever. It just helps you, and it helps them manage those expectations so that nobody gets too bent out of shape and frustrated and, derail the whole process. And honestly, most of the tension on teams, any team, whether it's a pastoral staff team or a basketball team or, a business venture team, whatever the case is, most of the frustration comes from lack of managing those expectations. Somebody has a high expectation and they're disappointed in what happens. Somebody expects one thing and they don't deliver. Their teammates don't deliver. One person is expecting everybody to chip in and do their part. The rest of the team thinks that person's doing it all by themselves. Managing expectations is where most tension can be avoided on a team. And so if you can identify the gap for each pastoral staff member, identify the gaps that they have, what they're good at, what they're not, and where the proficiency needs to be in the areas that they're not, then when they start going through the training experience, you know how long it's going to take and what you can expect from their performance at each step in the process. So that's the first main reason. And the second main reason, and this is a big one too, because all of us are pressed for time. When you identify gaps, then it allows you to be laser focused on what needs to be done so that you avoid wasting time. You don't want to spend 6 months taking somebody through a training experience when they only need 3, when they could be proficient in 3, because you're spending time doing stuff that they don't need to go. You're not taking the proficient preacher and you're taking them through a basic preaching process training experience because they're already good at that. You're going to skip all of that and save all that time. It allows you to be laser focused and get proficient as quickly as possible and not waste any time. And quite honestly, for your staff pastors, they appreciate that because they don't feel like they're wasting time. Now, some of them are going to feel like they're wasting time just because they're going through any training at all. And that goes to the quality of the training. And we'll get to that at a later episode. But most of them, if they're serious about their craft as pastors, if they're serious about what they're doing, they're serious about their calling, they're serious about really excelling and being the best pastors they can be, most of them will value quality training. They will value you investing into them and giving them good, solid understanding of what you expect and how to be better themselves. And so when you identify gaps, again, it allows you to be laser focused. You're not wasting their time. You're not wasting your time. And you can really get maximum growth and development in the smallest amount of time. And I think all of us want that. When you bring on a staff pastor, you take them through a training process. If they can be ready to go fully proficient in all areas in a year instead of 2 years, that's a huge shift for you and for them and for the faith community that you serve. And so identify those gaps. What are they good at? What are they not good at? And then you can start adding in and pointing them to the right training pieces of the experience so they can get better, be more effective, carry more of the load for you, have a higher morale as members of the team, feel like they're really doing their best, feel like they're really contributing, feel like they're really equipped to do the job you've hired them to do and to fulfill the calling that God has put on their lives. All of that is positive. Do they have to go through some training experience? Yes, they do. But most who are learners and most who want to be better, they're okay with that. And I would say if they're not, if they kick back on training, if they're not interested in it, then that would be a red flag for me. Because I'm looking for people to come alongside me who want to be their best, not people who just want to get by. If they just want to get by, there are other places for them to go. And so if they are kicking back on you developing them and training them and helping them be better, if they're kicking back and saying they don't want to do that, that would be a red flag for me. And so I would pay attention to that and maybe try and get to the bottom of why are they kicking back. Maybe they don't want to grow and develop. Maybe they don't have a respect for you training them. Maybe they just want to lean on their natural talents and charisma to get them by. Whatever the case is, that should be a red flag. But for those who are really interested in growing and developing, identify their gaps, figure out what are they good at, what are they not, and really focus their attention on getting better in the areas they need to get better in. So they can be better, more effective, advance the kingdom of God, reach their community, be better members of the team in the shortest amount of time possible. Identify those gaps, and that'll help all of that come to be. And again, part of this, the whole point of having this highly effective pastoral team is so that they can carry more of the load of ministry so that you can focus on the things that only you can focus on. And it can open the door and the pathway for you to start living your dream life in ministry. So identify those gaps so you can help everybody get where they need to be. All right? Hope you have a wonderful day, and I'll see you in the next episode.